Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we are diving right into a masterclass on something literally everyone has an opinion on, but very few truly understand. We're talking about dietary protein. It's heavily marketed, constantly debated, and honestly, super misunderstood. Today, we're going to explore the biological extremes of protein intake. We'll look at the physiological realities of what happens when the human body gets way too little and what actually happens when we push the absolute upper limits of our consumption. So, get ready to take some mental notes. We are going straight into the science to separate the facts from the fads. Here is the roadmap for our Goldilocks journey today. We're covering the protein sweet spot, the danger of too little, hidden deficiencies at home, the protein package deal, and finally, we'll be debunking protein overload myths.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the protein sweet spot.
Okay, before we can talk about the extremes, we really have to define what a human body actually needs to function optimally every single day. The acceptable macronutrient distribution range, or AMDR for short, designates that protein should make up somewhere between 10 and 35% of your total daily calories. And wow, that is a really wide range. I mean, diverse human cultures throughout history have survived and actually thrived on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got traditional Inuit diets heavily dependent on meat, right over to traditional vegetarian diets in India. Interestingly enough, a 2018 study found that most Americans comfortably hit this sweet spot. We average about 14 to 16% of our caloric intake from protein, which translates to roughly 88 grams a day. Moving on to Section 2, the danger of too little. So, we're shifting gears from that comfortable sweet spot to the downright tragic realities of what happens biologically when the body simply doesn't get enough protein to build its basic structural and functional components. Now, while severe protein deficiency is super rare in the developed world, it remains a leading cause of death for children in many underdeveloped nations. Let's look at our first key vocabulary word here, kwashiorkor. This name actually comes from a language in Ghana and translates to the rejected one. It earned this heartbreaking name because it most commonly happens when older infants are recently weaned off nutrient-dense breast milk, usually because a new baby has arrived, and they're switched on to a diet of watery porridge made from low-protein grains. The absolute crucial point here is that the child might actually be consuming enough total calories, but they are critically lacking the protein needed to survive. To really understand the hallmark symptom of kwashiorkor, we need to geek out on the biology for a second. I want you to picture what we can call the albumin sponge. You see, one of the essential roles of protein in your body is fluid balance. Your liver naturally produces a protein called albumin, and one of its main jobs is to act literally like a sponge, holding water inside your blood vessels. When a child's diet is extremely low in protein, they just can't synthesize enough albumin. Without that sponge, water actually leaks out of the blood vessels and pulls right into the surrounding tissues. This causes severe swelling or edema, especially in the feet, and leads to a severely distended, swollen abdomen. Which brings us to our second key term, marasmus. Marasmus is a Greek word that literally means starvation. This syndrome affects more than 50 million children under the age of 5 worldwide. Now, unlike kwashiorkor, children and adults suffering from marasmus are deficient in protein, yes, but they are simultaneously not taking in nearly enough calories overall. Just to lock this in, let's contrast the physiological differences between these two conditions. With kwashiorkor, you've got adequate calories, but a severe lack of protein, leading to that hallmark swelling and edema. But with marasmus, there is a massive lack of both calories and protein. This leads to extreme emaciation, acute fatigue, and a really severe wasting away of muscle and fat. To put that into perspective, the body weight of a child with marasmus might be up to 80% less than that of a healthy child their exact same age.
Now, pop quiz time. I want to test your biological intuition here. Think about what we've just discussed regarding organ systems completely shutting down and fluid leaking into tissues. What do you think is the ultimate cause of death for children suffering from these severe malnutrition syndromes?
Well, the tragic reality is, it's infection. While their organ systems are undeniably compromised by undernutrition, the actual mechanism of death is usually an infection. Undernutrition massively suppresses the immune system at multiple levels. Because of this, these undernourished children are left practically defenseless. They commonly pass away from severe diarrhea or pneumonia, resulting from really basic bacterial or viral infections. According to UNICEF, nearly half of all deaths of children under age 5 globally are related to malnutrition. Think about that. That is roughly 3 million children every single year. Let's move to Section 3, hidden deficiencies at home. We really tend to think of protein deficiency as exclusively a developing world issue, right? But get a load of this number, 23%. This statistic comes directly from a comprehensive 2018 study. 23% of adolescent girls in the United States between the ages of 14 and 18 are consuming below the recommended dietary allowance, or RDA, for protein. That is nearly 1 in 4 young women failing to hit the basic baseline for structural growth and development. Absolutely wild. So let's break down exactly who is falling behind here. As we said, 23% of adolescent girls, but also 11% of adolescent boys are below the RDA. Researchers actually believe this is strongly linked to their growing independence in food choices, combined with a super high prevalence of dieting in this age group. But it doesn't stop there. Among adults 71 years and older, 19% of women and 13% of men are failing to consume enough protein. And this is incredibly dangerous. As we age, our loss of muscle mass accelerates rapidly. Failing to hit those protein targets leads directly to greater frailty, a loss of physical balance, and a terrifyingly high risk of life-altering falls. Next up, Section 4, the protein package deal. Let's completely pivot to the opposite end of our Goldilocks curve. We've seen the devastation of too little, but what are the biological consequences of eating too much? Well, the crucial and honestly surprising point is that there is currently no established upper limit for dietary protein. When the Food and Nutrition Board of the Institute of Medicine wrote the dietary references, they actually concluded there simply wasn't enough evidence to establish a toxic upper ceiling. No limit. So why are people so intensely afraid of high-protein diets? Well, it turns out the danger usually isn't the protein itself. The danger is the package it comes in. I really want you to think of every protein source you eat like a vacation package. You're booking the protein, sure, but what else are you getting in the deal? If you get your high protein from steak, bacon, and sausage, you are getting hit with massive hidden fees: saturated fat, high sodium, and nitrates. Over time, that specific package is strongly linked to an increased risk of heart disease and cancers, partly due to the carcinogens formed when meat is heavily charred. Now consider the salmon package. You get the exact same high protein, but with zero hidden fees and a premium upgrade of heart-healthy polyunsaturated fats. And for plant sources, lentils offer a solid amount of protein package with incredible premium upgrades, like high fiber and low fat. The protein molecule itself isn't what's hurting you. The biological damage comes entirely from the hidden fees in the package. Finally, let's jump into Section 5, debunking protein overload myths. This perfectly sets us up for our final topic today. Let's take out our red pens and grade some old-school nutrition science. Here is another pop quiz to challenge some really common dietary assumptions. If you've ever read older nutrition blogs or even some vintage textbooks, you've definitely seen these warnings. Does eating a high-protein diet leach calcium from your skeleton and weaken your bones? And does it put a massive dangerous strain on your kidneys? Both of these myths are officially 100% busted by modern meta-analyses. Let's look at the actual data. For decades, researchers noticed that urinary calcium excretion increased when people ate high amounts of protein. So they just naturally assumed the body was leaching calcium from the bones, leading to osteoporosis. But a massive 2017 systematic review from the National Osteoporosis Foundation proved this totally false. High protein does not increase the risk. In fact, higher protein intake is often associated with greater bone mineral density. As for the kidneys, a 2018 meta-analysis concluded that high-protein diets do not strain healthy kidneys. Your body is perfectly capable of filtering and excreting the extra nitrogen without damaging the organ at all. However, and please make sure this goes in your notes, there is one vital medical caveat here. These rules apply to healthy kidneys. If an individual already has pre-existing chronic kidney disease, they absolutely must restrict their high-protein intake. They need to maintain it right around the RDA baseline of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. But even then, they cannot drop it too low. A fascinating 2009 study showed that dropping protein intake down to 0.6 grams per kilogram for kidney patients didn't actually prevent kidney failure, but it did increase their overall risk of death. Even sick bodies desperately need their baseline building blocks. So to summarize everything we've learned in today's explainer, while a high-protein diet isn't inherently harmful to a healthy person, there is honestly very little research directly testing the long-term health effects of extreme, purified protein diets, like, living entirely off isolated protein powders. Biology loves synergy. The absolute smartest biological strategy is hitting that safe AMDR sweet spot with a balanced intake of whole foods from all the food groups. That ensures you get all the complex micronutrients your body actually requires. Which leaves us with this final thought to carry with you out of today's lecture. The next time you sit down to prepare a meal, I really want you to ask yourself, are you just obsessing over hitting a specific number of protein grams? Or are you finally looking closely at the total package it comes